You cover the Nuggets for a lot of seasons. You spent a lot of time over at Pepsi Center. You know the hierarchy there, especially the guy who's running
by the way,
who's
we don't call it Pepsi Center.
Yeah, the two boys who are running the joint, Stan and Josh Kroenke.
Yeah.
Nuggets are not going to the playoffs. Abysmal season. Avalanche, very disappointing season. They're not going to the playoffs. What is wrong with what's going on at Pepsi Center this last winter? Is it an aberration? Is there something systemic here? What's going on? What's your take on what's happening over there?
Well, let's also not forget that last season the Nuggets were pretty poor as well.
Yes.
People would say, oh, they had injuries and that's what led to it, but it's been my standard, what I've been fighting for in the paper. I just don't like their roster. I mean, we can say whatever we want about Josh Kroenke. He's not done a very good job at the top. We can talk about Tim Connelly, the coach. But if you even bring in 1966 Red Auerbach, how well would he have done with Kenneth Faried and Danilo Gallinari and these guys? Clearly it starts from the top. Clearly Josh Kroenke hired Brian Shaw. You could argue that Stan Kroenke fired Brian Shaw. But if they don't get new players, the Nuggets' problem is the Nuggets. And they need new Nuggets. And it's going to start with this draft pick. I'm glad they lost last night. I'm glad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They did
what they needed to do.
Yeah. This draft pick's not... I mean, they're probably not going to get the number one pick, but whoever they get needs to become a starter instantly.
Do you think? Because I believe they're going to finish 8th.
Okay.
They were on a road with Brian Shaw to finish 4th or 5th.
Sure.
They are now on a road to be crappy in terms of their pick.
Right.
Their pick's going to be the 8th guy. And I maintain, and I now ask you the question, is there a guy that is at 7th or 8th where they will probably be that is the next Carmelo Anthony?
Well, I mean, if it's the next Carmelo Anthony, he'd be picked 3, 2, 1. I know what you're asking. Of course, I really like Cauley Stein from Kentucky, who
could fall there.
He'll be available between 5 and 10. Is he a franchise-changing player? No, but is he an NBA double-double
Is
player?
he a starter? He's not even a starter in college.
We're getting a little bit away from what I asked you.
Okay.
Is there something in the water at Pepsi Center that's not allowing these teams to succeed now?
Yeah, it's Pepsi. It's Pepsi Cola.
Yeah.
That's what's in the water. That's
Sorry,
the problem.
the can.
That's the problem.
Right.
That is the problem. Pepsi Cola is the problem.
I mean, clearly it's easy and makes sense to point the finger at the top, and we all will and shall. I think we need to see this Tim Connelly thing through and see what he can do in the next 3 or 4 months in regards to revamping the roster. The Avalanche was the most curious thing because they were so close to greatness last year, and they've fallen apart this year. Now, Kroenke can't fire himself. He can't trade himself.
He could fire himself.
I guess he could fire himself, a la the Monfort thing earlier. I think one thing we could bring up is the question, does Josh Kroenke have his hand in is iron in too many fires? Help me out with the phrase here.
That was it.
Okay. Well, then don't help me out with the phrase. No, I mean, should he just focus on basketball and not even touch hockey, not even touch soccer? Is that something that could maybe benefit?
Do you really think he touches either one of those?
He's pretty busy with those. I mean, he's not making the decisions like, oh, bring this guy up from AAA hockey, but he spends a lot of his day doing
at the head of the table.
Well, then he should spend a lot less of it because he knows less about hockey and less about the Rapids than less.
Less than less?
Yeah.
Less than less.
Yeah. If he did a commentary here, it would be less of less.
Less of less.
If Woody had his way.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd rather you be running the teams. I'll trade. I can work with Josh Kroenke because I can just not let him talk, and you go run the teams, and you would do a better job.
I'll tell you what, you give me Josh Kroenke's salary, I'm in.
Well, I don't know that he's making a lot of money because
he's making more than I am right now.
It's funny you said, well, we'll see what happens. I spend more time. I've been here 40 years, 41 years, I think, 74. It's at 41. And I have heard more people say, let's see what happens. Give him time. And I always say, when they say, give him time, 5 to life. That's what you need to do.
So what do you do? Is it a hopeless endeavor? Can they possibly turn the Denver Nuggets into a top 4 team in the Western Conference?
Carl Scheer did that. Carl Scheer did that. I think that we saw Masai Ujiri, who apparently had more control over Josh Kroenke, that they did it under Masai. They did it under that three-headed monster that existed here. They did it under George Karl. They did it under Doug Moe. They did it under Larry Brown.
But what does
It
did it
can
though
be
mean,
done.
Woody? I mean, they've only been to the Western Conference Finals twice since the mid-'80s.
What has to happen is they've got to get lucky. They got to get lucky or smart in the draft, and they might have to swing a good.
No, I'm with you.
They might have to
That's why
swing a
well,
big deal. And
They
get
were
lucky that
in the
regard, too.
80s. If you'd been here in the 80s, in the 70s, they almost won an ABA championship. They came very close to going to and winning the NBA championship, but they had injuries that happened in the playoffs.
Yeah,
in
the
the
Lakers
80s,
series,
they
yeah.
had some serious injuries to people like Calvin Nat, Fat Lever. You're talking about. We all liked Fat Lever. They
Triple-double
went through,
machine.
and they had a period where they were really good. And Brian Taylor, who was a guard, just walked out on them in the middle of the season, and that really screwed up because he was doing a good. So if you go back in history, and they could have, with a couple of good passes from J.R. Smith, they could have beaten the Lakers and gone to the NBA Finals.